purpose of this museum and the whole reason we are here today like that is to celebrate the human element. It took people to design, engineer, develop, and ultimately use this equipment. That's what makes history. Not that this equipment is an intimate part of history like that, but it takes us as a people. And we're looking back, in this particular case, we're going to be looking back 80 years, the technology that was developed during World War II, and like that. But it was the people that used that technology that what made it effective and such, just like today. And we stand on the shoulders of every generation since that time. Now, in this particular case, most all the equipment that you see out here is designed to put steel on target. On the other hand, the first technology we're going to be talking about goes far back, even before firearms were developed, and that's the use of fire as an offensive tool. It was used as early as 2,000 years ago with the Byzantines and such, and eventually developed. During the Middle Ages, because of the delivery capability and the lack of technology, it would drop out of use for a short period of time. It wasn't until the beginning of World War I with the French and Germans that technology would come into place with pressurized tanks and stuff. They would start using fire as an offensive weapon during World War I. But even then, it was more of a terror weapon than what it was a practical combat weapon. Like, if you can imagine being on the battlefield, and again, putting your shoes in those generations gone before us, being on the receiving end as a Frenchman, as a German, or as an American, seeing the other side coming across, seeing something you have never seen before, flame coming out of a nozzle like that, and it's pointed right at you. Like I say, far more terrifying than being shot. Like I say, this would follow all through. Now, ironically, although we look at ourselves as a major industrial country, like that, between World War I and World War II, the United States fell way behind in the development of flamethrower technology. Again, budget cuts, even then, being a big issue. And so, by the beginning of World War II, we went into it very ill-prepared like that. When the 1st Marine Division landed at Guadalcanal in 1942, like that, they were carrying a total of 40 Mark I flamethrowers with them. They were in the hands of the engineers and were considered a support weapon. It took a while to charge, like that. The ignition systems didn't work as well as what they hoped to, and they fired straight gasoline. That means the effective range of the flamethrower at that time, like for the Mark I's, was only about 30 yards at best. That means the operator, because it's straight gasoline, not gel, as we'll talk about a little bit later, had to get close to its target and had to keep constant flame efficient on the target. But the idea of the flamethrower is not to burn your opponent. The idea behind the flamethrower is to incapacitate somebody that you can't reach with firearms, grenades, or other types of methods. In fact, making you think again. What does fire need to burn? What fuels does it use? Oxygen is the primary thing. And the idea behind the flamethrower is you inundate the target, be it a bunker, be it a cave mouth, or whatever like that, and you basically cause oxygen deprivation. You suck the air out of it like that, incapacitate it. This allows a Marine to come up with a satchel charge, hand grenades, or even small arms to take out that target. In 1944, copying European and Asian technology, we came up with a new system. They completely rethought the flamethrower and came out with the new, what was referred to as the Mark II flamethrower. And it had one primary thing that was drastically different from that of the like earlier flamethrowers. It now had a gelling agent added to the flamethrower like that, so essentially we're now shooting jello through this nozzle. And that would prove a decided advantage. The viscosity, when before, the plain gasoline being shot, which is the same thing we're going to be shooting now, like we want to burn up the yard anymore than what we already have. Like that, is basically most of the product is going to vaporize and burn in air. That means if you were operating against a target, you'd have to stay there in place, keeping constant flame efficient on the target to do any good. With gel gasoline, on the other hand, there's a much greater viscosity. Like I said, imagine shooting jello out of a nozzle. That means the core stream will not vaporize. It will stay in liquid form, and you've probably seen it in some of the films and such, where we'll go out farther, we'll get a range of upward to 70 to 80 yards, like that, like say with the gel gasoline, and more importantly, it will hit, stick, and continue to burn. This will allow the operator a chance to be able to take cover. He does not have to keep himself constantly exposed to the enemy. But even then, it's like say a very user-unfriendly weapon. Now, if you look behind him, we got two teams here like that. Mr. Corporal Hogan here is going to be one operator. He's getting shorter by the minute, standing there with 70 pounds on his back. And like that, and we got. I'm drawing a blank. Sergeant Horton over here like that. Drove all the way up from Camp Lejeune to volunteer with us and stuff. They're going to be our two shooters. Now, looking at the technology involved, you look at both tanks and such. Mark II like that. It operates on very simple physics principles, very similar to the self-contained breathing apparatus a modern firefighter would use. Inside you have two large tanks, one on either side. They are your product tanks. That's where the gasoline, diesel, or gel gasoline would be kept. In between them, you see a small pressurized tank, just like a breathing apparatus tank. At the time, originally, we would use compressed air, and they'd be recharged by the engineers of these chutes. Now, what's made this effective, right behind where you can't see, there's a small regulator. And just like breathing apparatus, and like that, once you charge your product tanks, and like that, even though the pressure tank could be charged to a couple thousand PSI, it will reduce the pressure down to 250 to 275 pounds per square inch. That is enough to keep the operator safe. Now, the idea behind that, that basically forces the liquid out into the distance, but it also helps, the higher the pressure, helps the likes of the operator be protected. The little thing known as the Venturi effect is the operators, as you'll notice, both the operators and assistants, when we do volley fire these flamethrowers, is the assistant is going to be standing directly behind the operator, like that, staying in line. A very narrow cone is protecting radiant heat coming back, as the pressure of the gun, as it fires forward, it will draw air with it, keeping that radiant heat down a bit. If you're out of that cone like that, you're going to get burned, and you all will feel the heat a little bit back here. Now the gun group in front, like that, another thing that came over the Mark I like that, they came up with a whole new ignition system. And this actually used road flare technology and such, and the igniter system like that would actually look like a revolver.
I'm putting auto.
Like I say, there would be 5 cylinders, just like a revolving pistol. You can unscrew the nozzle of the gun. Like I said, hopefully it works.
Good.
Eighty-year-old technology. Let's see, like that, once it screws in, hopefully, once we get it hooked up like that, we'll show you how the ignition system works. Meanwhile, as we move forward, while they're working on getting that hooked up like that, is this system like that, it was very, very effective. But the interesting thing was, the Japanese had more advanced flamethrowers than what the Americans had. It took several years into the war before we started progressing and stuff. Why did the Americans end up being the dominant force using flamethrowers versus the Japanese? Because a flamethrower is an offensive weapon only. You do not use a flamethrower in a fixed position. It doesn't have the range, and once you shoot it once, you're now targeted. But on the other hand, when you're basically going against fixed positions such as bunkers and caves, having that fire capability, having something that can incapacitate the opposing force like that without having to expose your Marines too much like that is a big benefit. Get a bigger hammer, guys.
Cylinder in backwards.
Johnny? Good to go. See what happens? You get 3 staff NCOs trying to work on a project. It's almost as bad as 3 officers trying to work on a project. But anyway, like I say, poor Sergeant Horton standing here, like I say, again, also sleeping in the ground. Like I said, if you look at it, the 2 units are coupled together with the hose and such. Like I said, now the downside is, like that, as we were talking about, we're joking about the weight. This starts off, there's 4.5 gallons worth of fuel, like that. It weighs 70 pounds fully charged. It's not like carrying a backpack with easily distributed load. You can imagine running across a sugar sand beach, carrying 70 pounds worth of liquid on your back, sloshing back and forth and such. Once it shoots though, like I say, these Marines are waiting to go ahead and fire this, not for the UROF factor, but the fact that like that, within a few seconds, we're going to empty the tanks and like that, it'll go from 70 pounds down to 43 pounds, which is a big relief to the operator. Now you're probably thinking, looking at the movies and stuff like this, well, this is a big deal, and like that, you can shoot for a half hour, like that, go on. You have 4.5 pounds of fuel. If you could basically potentially hold the trigger open non-stop, you're going to dump your entire load within 12 seconds. Like that, that's it. Like I say, Guadalcanal, the engineers operate them, and like that. By the way, in Iwo Jima, we realized the importance of flamethrowers, and like that, and each division landing at Iwo Jima had a total of 400 flamethrowers that would go ashore with them. At that point, every basic Marine rifleman was trained in the operation of the flamethrower, not recharging, but merely the operation. And normally what would happen, besides the engineer, blowtorch, and cork routines, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and like that, the average grunt, they would come up to a bunker, and like that, hey, we need to take guys. The squad leader would say, hey, private snuffing. Go to the rear, like that, grab a flamethrower, like that would have been brought ashore by the advanced parties. And such, pick up the flamethrower, take it to the target, take out the target, and drop it, and then the engineers would come up behind and pick up the flamethrowers. Still tell you you need a bigger hammer.
You got a good spot. Up on my shoulder. Oh, no.
It takes a junior man to figure it out. All right, let's see now. Like I said, now look at it. Now that we have the igniter in, we'll charge it, and hopefully the igniter actually works. Now these igniters are original igniters. They're 80 years old. And like that, so hopefully the waterproofing and like that still works. Go ahead. Now the upside and the downside, once you hit that igniter, it will burn for about 12 seconds. The downside of that is once you have an ignition source for 12 seconds, which is a lifetime in combat, you have, let's say, a flame source. Now one of the stories that goes around like that, if you look at Hollywood and such, and all the time in the movie, you see flamethrower, oh, the horrible way to die. A bullet hits a flamethrower and boom, it goes up like a bomb. Not the way it works. Basic physics like that, you have compressed air pushing on a product like that is not in the flammable rate, the liquid. What will happen, and I'll tell you an anecdotal story after we've done shooting them like that, what will happen if an enemy bullet goes into the product tank, it won't explode immediately. You'll now have the path of least resistance, and you'll see the fuel start coming out. As that fuel vaporizes and starts getting the adequate explosive mixture of air mixed into the product, it will wait until that cloud that is formed around the operator hits an ignition source. You can see, they can tell the operator, he just dumped his entire load. When it starts sputtering like that, you're down to the bottom of the tank. Few seconds, and we just dumped, like say, almost 10 gallons worth of fuel. Interesting enough, like I said, the operators are very happy right now. They didn't blow up, they didn't burn, and they were carrying a lot lighter weight. Now, to put things in perspective, I told you I was going to make you use that brain housing curve and stuff. Let's go back and talk a little bit about the reality of using this. Great entertainment today. We're sitting here in a very controlled environment like this talking about this. When I had the privilege several years ago to interview one of the veterans of Iwo Jima. He was part of an engineer blowtorch and corkscrew team. That team consisted of 2 flamethrower operators and 2 firing automatic riflemen that acted as the assistants to the gunner. This Marine described to me that he basically landed on Iwo Jima, they were moving across the Sicker Sand Beach, and the squad that he was supporting and like that ran into a bunker with heavy machine gun fire. They started to move forward. The first flamethrowerman, about 50 yards, or 50 feet in front of the second flamethrower operator like that, had already charged his unit, just like we saw it here and such. All of a sudden, a round hit the tank, and exactly as is described, like that, the fuel came out, vaporized, and all of a sudden this Marine went up in a small flame. The second Marine that I was interviewing said he saw this, immediately dropped to the ground, and he literally said his steering too bad and urinated himself. But he knew lives were depending on him doing his job. Despite the fear that he had of this flamethrower, he pulled off his trouser belt, his legging laces, anything he could find to make a belt. Tied it onto that flamethrower, drug it behind him until he got in range of the target, put the flamethrower back on his back, and commenced to take out that bunker, saving many Marines' lives. And this is what it is all about, ladies and gentlemen, all this technology. It's not about the technology itself, it's about the people that have used it. It's about the service members of every generation that have sacrificed, achieved, and not even made mistakes to learn what we learn now. We stand on the shoulder of every generation. So as you go through today like that, looking at all this equipment and such, just remember, it's people just like us that was able to use that technology to keep us the nation we are today. We are the greatest nation in the world today. Not because we snapped our finger and it happened, but because every generation that's gone before us has sacrificed and achieved to make it better for us. So hopefully you younger generation standing out here, the biggest thing I'd like you to learn from this is you are going to be our future history. History doesn't stop. It's not old stuff. It goes on every day. And if the younger generation can learn from the past, including our mistakes, then hopefully they can say, I can make it better for the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much.
Folks, let's have a nice round of applause for the Marines here. Again, these are not reenactors, these are real Marines, the real McCoy. And not to be outdone from the last time, but they brought 2 flamethrowers today, so that was pretty cool. Guys, thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Yesterday, we did a demonstration in the afternoon with the Marine Corps Historical Company, and you can see the remains of that, or the lack of remains from that. So this is that point in time. We're here at this museum. I tell you that this is not just a museum about the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, but also the first responders, like the folks from the volunteers at Nokesville Fire Department. We want to thank them for being here yesterday and helping us knock down the fire that it was getting toasty there for a few minutes. But again, I want to thank the Marine Corps Historical Company. So I believe there is a plan later today to try to take out a bunker again. So I hope you'll be here for that. But I'm glad you all got to see that equipment. What I want to remind you of is the fact that gear like this, you could be seeing it in a museum in a case. And you say, oh, that's a Mark whatever flamethrower. But here you actually got to see it used. And that's what's special about this museum. This isn't just like the old Aberdeen Proving Ground where they had a museum where all these tanks are sitting on plinths and concrete slabs. These tanks, every one of them was driven out here into this field. And eventually, the plan is, in a couple of years, to be down there close to Potomac Mill, and you'd be able to do something like this any day of the week. We'd run vehicles around, we'd have vehicles on display, we'd have landscapes of war where you'd see things like an Iraqi village or a Vietnamese fire base or whatever, World War II camp. And there would also be places there where people could present things like authors who have new books. It could be book signings. It could be model shows where the modelers come out and show the models they've built of the vehicles that are sitting behind them on display. So that's the plan. Rather than to have to basically put the museum together every year for the open house, it would be there all the time for you to enjoy any day of the year. So I encourage you to become a member of the museum. Those of you who have become members either here today or online, your name has gone into a hat, and they're going to be drawing some names in a little while for vehicle rides. We are scheduled to have a demonstration at 11 o'clock. So right now it's 10:44. So in about 15 minutes, I would come back here to the orange fence again. In the meantime, I would say, go enjoy the show, see the vehicles, and there's always food and drink available up there. And do please stay hydrated. I didn't do that yesterday, and it hit me hard. So again, please stay hydrated. But of course, our museum is about running vehicles, so I'm going to encourage you guys to start making your way down to the fence again. You're going to find as this day goes on, you're moving in waves across the field here. But in just a few moments, I believe they're going to be bringing out one or two of our treasures from the museum. You'll have a chance to see them run out here on the track.
It's primarily to stop the track. That one can stop right now. And that one later on, upgraded to armor, it still has the side cap. It works a lot easier. Just screw it on. I was sitting out here yesterday, and I had what I believe is a kidney stone give me some issues. So that was crumpling me over less and less as the ibuprofen kicked in, but then the heat started. I had the Black Panther pants on and the shirt, and they'll be, hey, we're out at the museum. They have the headset, so it's a chance to meet and take dumbest thing I've ever done.
You fellas been doing, you've been doing this for years?
We've been doing it for a long time.
Have you?
Me, I've been here for a long time.
Okay. Because I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago you were talking. It's like, yeah, you know, this is the German, it's the wool, and it's in the summer. It I think I remember that uniform.
I would go to reenactments at Indiantown Gap, and I would put that uniform on. Usually I pulled that little arm over some long johns. If I had gloves on my fingers, I was just as comfortable as could be coasting. Maybe a little ear protection.
Let it be zero, I'm fine.
Well, even the hat has a flap designed to be pulled down in winter weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I always, I love wearing a uniform and showing off next to the tank and things like that. And when we run the tank, we try to get me or somebody else in it that's dressed up in the German. We don't run that tank very often because it's a bear to operate. It's not easy to drive, and it has very, very limited vision. So it's not really safe to operate. I mean, a lot of times the German reenactors said, "Hey, we'd love to run across the field, you know, chasing the tank." I'm like, I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah. Just give it room.
Yeah. So anyway, we have it, and we're thrilled to have it, and it's an important piece of equipment. But I also kind of like, you know, it's the Americans Wartime Museum. I want to tell all the history, but I get it if some people that have sensitivities about things like, you know. I mean, I work for the government, so I have to sit for a poly every 5 years. So this museum, yeah, we have things.
Can I put aside any of our fans?
Yeah.
Don't wear the armbands.
How do you dress? Well, if you're like a German tank in World War II, you wear a World War II tanker's uniform, like an American soldier. If you're with a Russian tank, you dress up like a Russian. So then the next question is, what do you dress up as? German. German. Truck, hey, Red Ball Express. Some of the only jobs they're letting them have. So African Americans, but they help win the war. So you gotta tell them.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what would you say if I said this is one of the coolest American tank designs to roll out? And everyone would say, oh, Richard's lost his war, the heat's gotten to him. That's not an American tank, that's a Russian tank. Well, yes it is. It's a T-34-85. And we have two of them. And I love this tank. But I will stick by my claim that at least the suspension is American. There was a gentleman named Walter Christie back in the 20s and 30s, and he had different ideas about tanks than what we were seeing in the early newsreel footage. The Americans designed the suspension, not the engine. So Christie had an idea. Instead of having these big tanks, slow lumbering things with these little tiny wheels on springs that would be a really bad, bumpy ride, Christie thought, let's take the wheels, make them big, mount them in boxes, mount the springs in boxes on the sides of the hull, and that way you've got all this room in the hull for maybe storing ammunition on the floor. And that's exactly what the T-34 did, and the tanks before it. The BT-5, the BT-7, these are all tanks patterned after Christie's designs. Now the U.S. Army looked at Christie's designs, and they frankly were not that impressed. And this is at a time when the cavalry thought, you know, tanks can steer the horses, and why do we need all this? Christie was never able to sell this design to the American Army. However, he did sell it successfully to the British and to the Russians. The British had the cruiser tanks like Crusader, things like the Coventry, different tanks that had large wheels, again, with springs mounted on the side of the hull. So the suspension, like this bars, didn't go through the hull. The Russians first had the T-34 with a 76mm gun, and later in the war they enlarged the turret and put an 85mm gun in it, and this was a very good tank. How successful was the T-34? Well, I let the map do the story for me. They made 80,000 of these tanks. Now the Germans, you know, everybody talks about, oh, Tiger tanks. Those tanks at the King Tigers, they made less than 500. 50,000 Shermans, 80,000 T-34s. That's why you may have a better chance of seeing one of these or one of those Shermans in a museum. Now, as that tank moves, we're going to hear this clinking and clanking, but it's more than just the metal tracks. As it goes faster, you'll hear that thing go, and then it slows down and goes slower. That is a piece of metal pushing the track pins back into the tracks. The tracks do not have pins that have end connectors on it. They literally just assemble the track and then roll it and let the track pin just get knocked in each time it goes around. Now, they used to have a tank on display at Aberdeen, a T-34 that they found in France, actually. The Germans had captured it, and then we captured it when we moved through France. And it was always so funny to look at that tank. A lot of modelers made this mistake. They had the tracks on inside out. So what ended up happening, the pins stuck out. That tank would have rolled for about, I don't know, 300, 400 feet before pins would have started flying out of the track and it would have stopped. But you can hear that clink, 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 clink. And if you close your eyes, you'll also hear the Tigers on Kelly Zeros, because those tanks were mock-ups made on T-34s from Yugoslavia. You can hear that clink, 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 clink. That's the simplicity of the Russian design and manufacture. Why have this complicated pin piece for each track? We'll just push the pin in and let the whole keep knocking it in. It's a diesel engine tank. It has slope armor. At a time when the Germans had a lot of tanks that had vertical plates, the T-34 had slope armor and it's very good coverage. T-34s were actually manufactured in places like Czechoslovakia and Germany. They were used in the Cold War up until the 1950s and 60s, when they tended to be relegated to second-line units or sold off the country. So a lot of countries in Africa use them, Angola used T-34s. The Egyptians and Assyrians used T-34s in the early battles in the 1950s against Israel. These tanks were also active in Bosnia-Herzegovina during the Kosovo crisis and the war down there. In fact, a number of our pieces of equipment come from the Yugoslav conflict. So the M-18 Hellcat, the F-36 Jackson, and one of our T-34s is also a Bosnian T-34. Today there are still a few countries that have T-34s. There are some working T-34s, I believe, still used in North Korea. There are also some in various African countries. They're, despite what you saw, they're fairly reliable, fairly easy to maintain. They're fairly Spartan inside, but the Russians were not really interested in creature comforts. They were just trying to get an effective tank out there and get as many of them as possible to do it. What's interesting about this, if you look at the construction of this tank, if America had cast a turret like that at Rock Island Arsenal, they would have thrown it into the heap and said, remelt it. And that's a mess. That thing is so rough. You rub your hand along it, you literally get the skin off. But the Russians said, that works the slag off and you paint it, keep building tanks. So where it can be rough, it is rough. But where it needs to be precise, it's actually a very good tank. And she's still running today. These tanks with the 85mm gun really started going into service at the end of 1943. So now it's 20 23, math. We have 2 of them, and we're thrilled to have this. There were variants of this tank as well. This was such a successful design that the Russians had 3 different types of self-propelled guns mounted on this, tank cutters and self-propelled guns. Like the S-22,
It's kind of our trade-off as a unit. We're like, hey man, we'll give anybody anything that's less clear first.
Now, shifting gears, literally, we've got the RDF tank, Rapid Deployment Force tank. If it looks a little small, it is. One thing you'll notice about this tank is that the wheels and tracks look very much like the F-113 armored personnel carrier we have on display. That's because they are. This tank was developed by some engineers up at Hunt Valley, Maryland, a company called AAI. The idea was to have a tank that was small enough to go into a C-130. Here, that was the marker for any piece of equipment that they wanted to build. You got to be able to get in a C-130. Well, guess what? You can get 2 of these and it's down in the hull. Later on, they developed a version that had no crew in the turret, everybody down in the hull, just 2 guys. But it's supposed to be small and fast. That gun may look kind of small to you, but that's actually a 75mm gun, and it has a fairly decent punch behind it. Depending on which version you're looking at, this can have an auto loader, or somebody actually loading the gun using a single piece ammunition. Had some issues. It was light enough to get into a C-130 and you could even airdrop it. The problem with the Sheridan was that it had a sort of a combination gun that fired both 100 and 52mm shells, and it also fired anti-tank guided missiles. The problem was if you fired the anti-tank guided missile on the Sheridan, you messed up the sights for the regular conventional gun, and if you fired the conventional gun, you tended to mess up the sights for the missile. So ultimately, the Sheridans were pulled out of service, although they gave us great service in Vietnam, and we even took some to Panama, and then I guess the last deployment with the U.S. was in Desert Storm. They were some of the first tanks waiting on the ground for what they thought was going to be an attack from Saddam Hussein. Anyway, we're lucky to have the RDF tank. The folks at AAI contacted Alan Kors and said, we've got this tank. We think it's a piece of history, even though the Army didn't ultimately buy it. We said we'd happily give it a loving home, and we have it, and we run it around many times. So there you get to see. It's kind of left, and that is actually part of our 9/11 display. We have a fire truck here and a car and the first responders, both of which were destroyed in the 9/11 attacks. I'm sorry to say, all of the firemen that were to respond to that call, they passed away. So that is sort of our living memorial to them. And now we'll have a special place that we have our museum.
I mean, there is no years, so unless you stop watching, you see
You
bend your knees slightly.
yeah.
Your left hand
There
here
are quite a
on
few monuments.
So enjoy, have fun.
Like it used to be, oh, you
See the vehicles, talk to people, talk to the veterans.
Yeah, not anymore.
If you see one,
20 years
thank
after
them for
that
their
monument was
service.
put in place,
You want to
all
aim
the
center
mechanics of that
mass,
is
and then when you
busted in
thrust, the
place.
only part of your body that moves is
That's
pretty cool. Okay? Only your
Although
arms.
they did
So you're not
start
like leaning
an
into the
IS, or no,
attack.
an
That'll throw you off
IS-2 like
You just want to do
120
quick,
in
sharp
Russia.
thrust. Okay? Like imagine trying to stash
Fresh, like off of the monument, ran.
straight in, quick, and hard.
So maybe they do, but you know, I'm not certified in driving. I'm just the guy who
All right, so I'm left-handed, so this is going to be a little difficult.
Grip the entire rear side.
Okay, you got to do the bayonet?
There you go, that's not bad. Good. Follow through. Good. Well done. Sled your shit.
Folks, the reenactors and historical interpreters and volunteers.
How was the ride?
Хорошо, очень хорошо.
Замечательно. Пыли много, Дасти?
Okay, so I will show you. So your footwork is first. You point your left foot towards your opponent, and you keep your right foot at a 90-degree angle. Like you see how my feet are? Copy my stance, and then bend your knees slightly.
Any questions?
Okay. Keep your back straight. Don't like punch over the rifle. And then you hold the right hand back here behind the trigger, and the left hand here under the rear sight. Okay? Your right hand holds the rifle here at your hip. Okay?
Yeah, I was just
and your left hand moves the bayonet.
I was in the gunner seat, so trying to make sure.
You train the bayonet at the center mass of the target, and when you thrust, only your arms move. And you want a quick, sharp motion. Don't give your opponent any indication of where your blow is going to land, or you're going to get parried or disengaged. All right? So when you thrust, let's go quick, sharp, and fast. Imagine trying to stab a fly. All right? You ready?
Yeah, my two here. I was thinking that the entire time. Yeah. That's why I'm shouting.
Bullshit.
Feet. Fix your feet. Let the swing hand down. Fix your feet. Copy my stance. See where my feet are? Yep. Bend your knees a little bit. It should be a comfortable stance. Just a little too much. You're not throw. All right, try thrust. Don't wind up. When you hold the rifle back like that, I know exactly what you're going to do, and I will stick you every time. Quick, sharp, right in. Don't wind up. Just go. Go, try it. Don't wind up. Every time you do this, I'm gonna know I know what you're gonna do. Sharp, but surprise the target. That's better. I know the rifle is a little heavy for you. Cool. Want to try again, or are you done? Okay. He's back to me.
Молодец. Умница.
А сейчас вы красный мне.
Спасибо.
Пожалуйста. Следующее. You're next?
That young man there.
All right. So, to use the Soviet bayonet, the first thing, the most important, is your footwork. If you fall over, you're toast. I'll just cave your skull into the rifle butt. So you want to point your left foot towards the target and hold your right foot at a 90
So once
degree
again,
angle.
reenactors
See how my
and
feet are?
volunteers,
You want to
the
copy that stance.
mess hall
Okay?
is open.
Bend your knees
We're going
slightly.
up and grab a bite to
You
eat.
hold the rifle like so. Your left hand
Word on
under
the
the
street
sight,
is
your
Buzz
right
makes
hand
a
back here
pretty
behind the
good
trigger.
hot dog up
Right?
there. Also at
Points the bayonet. And then
11:30,
when you thrust,
about
you want
7
to be a
minutes
quick,
from
sharp
now,
motion. Don't wind up. Don't go
I
like that.
believe
You just want to go.
Andy is going to make an appearance down here, and we are going to draw some names of lucky folks
Imagine
who will
squatting
become
forward.
members of the museum
Okay?
and are going to get their name
Ready?
pulled out of a hat, and if we pull that name out, we'll ride a vehicle.
Stand directly in front of the target. Follow your thrust through. As soon as you penetrate, you're going to debilitate that target. You'll have all the time in the world to recover your bayonet. Good. So don't do the first and immediately pull out. You want to thrust. You want to hold it. Follow your attack through. There you go. Good. Leather shit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, you're next. All right, so you point your left toes at the target. Your right foot at about a 90-degree angle with your knees slightly bent. Your right hand goes behind the trigger, your left hand up here under the sight. You hold your right hand at your hip like so, You use your left hand to point the bayonet, okay? Keep the bayonet trained center mass of the target. And then when you thrust, only your arms move. And you want a quick, sharp motion, okay? Don't wind up. Don't lean back into your attack or else I'll get you. All right? So when you thrust, just quick, sharp, straight in. Sort of like trying to swat a fly, you know? All right, you ready? All right, let me check your stance. All right, so is that comfortable? So try rotating this foot in a little bit. Is that better? Take a half step towards the target. Try again. Now you're not trying to aim a shot.
Yeah.
Nope. Feel the weight of the rifle.
Production for better quality, but they always have that issue.
Right in the kidneys.
Early T-34.
Put a little more force into it. You see, you wind up. Here, let me show you what happens when you wind up. It has bayonet. So get a little closer. A little closer. There you go. All right. Now do your wind up. Immediately, as soon as I see you move, I can see that you're rotating. I'm going to stick you. And you're not going to like it. Don't wind up. Understand? Great. Okay. I'll come and do the next one in just 1 minute. I got to go talk to one of my comrades. I'll be right back.
How different it would be, and so that we were able to separate them on two different fronts, and that's why the was one. And overall, the Soviet Union had the most
Girls usually they train us to do the first aid and like help in the field or whatever. But we do learn how to disassemble AK-47 and like they do teach us how to shoot and all of that stuff.
That's always something we love talking about.
Let's see. I could ask Scott, but I'll tell you, I'm not good with the numbers. Women tell history through stories, and men tell through facts. But let's see 1 second if I can get Scott, because I have a number, but I want to make sure that it's right.
I'm guessing. I just want to have some sort of.
My number that I'm thinking is 4 million, but I want to make sure. Scott, oh sorry. You gonna videotape my water too?
Max are authentic. So it didn't change over 100 years, probably same.
Yeah, maybe Caleb.
Same Max I used in Russia long ago.
Caleb, question. Caleb. Numbers. How many died Soviet Union? I want to say like 4 million is what sticks in my head, but that might be civilian and military. But I'm not sure.
I think it is, yeah, around that, like 4.5, 5.
Because it was something like 4 million in 4 years.
Yeah.
Over 4 million in 4 years. But I don't know if that includes the civilians and. Okay. So it includes both. Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I'm not giving you like the wrong information. All right.
Walter Rowe. Walter Rowe.
Come on.
How are you?
I'm just giving you crap.
Now she's not going to get out.
I know, there's other kids, like 4-year-olds. Yeah, okay, you're good. You're good. Get out. Let the kids in now, Kate. Oh, she's close. I put in a work order for air conditioning.
I think it actually is.
That's what you like.
Hey, sir, how's it going?
Oh, great. How are you? I was a little bit unsafe. So it's not Air Force, right? Army.
What's that?
It's not Air Force.
No, it's Army.
Army.
So we got it down the side down here too.
Uh-huh. Oh.
Hey, Ollie, why don't you mom stand right here in front of the cockpit?
It's okay.
Yeah.
She's not in it.
Oh, I didn't realize I had that one. Sorry.
Come on down.
Yeah, so you got two actuators. One's changing the tilt of the blade, and the other one's changing.
Oh my gosh.
Two children.
So you have about 2.5 hours. Yes.
It was no longer buoyant, but the water inside. But instead you try.
I don't know what you like. Oh, it was one of the space missions when they lost the capsule. When they were trying to that was Grissom. That was Grissom, right? Yep.
Well, I was actually figure out where it was.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have so many wonderful folks here who offer services for veterans, and Santa Pena is one of them. They're going to be doing a demonstration. Now it's new. It's going to be up on the apron there in front of the hangar by the flag. So head on up and see the folks in Santa Pena. They do some incredible things for us.
In a British truck.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And an American drive, no problem. That's smaller than some SUVs here.
Okay.
So when you take this, what they'll do is they'll cut the top of it off and they'll turn them into German, like Hetzers and stuff like that. So a lot of times when you see these vehicles at reenactments, they're not, but what gives it away?
Suspension and the
Yep, because what they're doing is they're looking for this, how can I shortcut building this? Well, I'll cut all this stuff off and weld the superstructure on as I need it. And you know, that's the easy part.
Hell of a job doing the cutting. That's industrial.
Anybody's going to get into something like that's going to be fairly industrial. Yeah. So, yeah, they'll be using these as those to reproduce look-alike German armor.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Are you local?
I'm from Baltimore.
Okay.
So I've been coming here for about 20 years. So it's fairly local, but not local enough that I don't sleep out here overnight because when you've been out with all this dust and heat and dirt and exhaust, I want to go back and I want to get the sunscreen and the sweat and the dirt and the dust off of me. I want to have a nice sleep so I can come back in for another day of sweat and sunscreen and dirt.
Thank you.
But we have guys, we have one guy over the British unit who's actually from the UK who was we also have, he's got Washington up and down the East Coast. Thank you guys. You guys actually picked up Fire Day. It just turned 12, so we'll be doing
stood up, went to take a walk and just went on my backside. It was the soles of my feet and it was right down to the, I think it's the dermis, got the epidermis through the outside. It was just taken out the rest of it. But while we were at Cemetery, there was an accident in that the sheep wandered onto the range where we were firing. And it was
Okay, let's go. Let's back up. You guys, okay?
And taken up to see what the round was actually. The idea behind that is to actually get across the power destructiveness of the rifle and its ammunition, but also it to improve weapon safety with weapon handling. There's no messing around, because there's no second chance with these at all. The hole on the other side of the sheep was about that big, and it also dragged out part of its lungs, heart and some of its stomach. The only good thing to say was that the sheep didn't suffer down the top. That's about the only good thing to say about it. But it had a profound effect on me, because that's an event that happened, what, get on for 30, nearly 40 years ago.
and I still remember it clear as a bell, and it gave me a very, very healthy respect for any kind of firearms.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, take care. Any questions?
Come in, come and have a look.
Now, is that?
It's not showing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing pretty much.
But is it the Stewart like radial engine?
I'm not too sure about the engine parts.
Gotcha.
I don't know too much about them. More just like the basic history of it. Hmm? The what? Might actually need fixing.
The Americans named it after Robert.
Robbie! Come on, y'all need to go get chow.
That's just the right size for.
That's a rat patrol. We need that at the house.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the. So
Wouldn't that be fun, Wyatt?
So is the Army going to the arms room concept as well?
They got over time they got better with the snipers. They finally got around to the snipers. It is kind of what the Marines I think has defaulted back to now. So we've got snipers and that's their mission. It's the mentality for employing them is not the same.
Is this your Jeep?
This is my Jeep. Cool. We're here representing a scout section.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Which would have been EM8 breakout.
What did you think of it?
Did you restore it yourself?
I like your shirt. See up in that big green tent right there? Like your dad's around or your mom's around? Or yeah. Money's around.
And I think at that point they were referred to as, because they got to the 55, hands there, 55.
Give it a lift.
Later on, when they did some upgrades to them, I think they were Panzer.
What is it?
Very front heavy.
Is it Centurion? British.
That was how the Swiss designated all the weight right up here. We got a Swiss Centurion about the same time that we got two Swiss PZ-61s. And interestingly enough, the Hetzer, which was used in Switzerland after World War II up until the 80s as a tank destroyer. That's for ambiance. Not only can I taste it, I can't see a bloody thing. So I hope the other driver is watching carefully. I may hug the fence line here. So, as I said, the Swiss were users, many of the countries in Europe were users. Another big customer for the Centurion is Israel.
This will just cause a little mild discomfort. Oh, yeah. I'll see you around. Oh, yeah, I'll be around.
Thanks, man. Also, largely, they still have some of the Israeli vehicles that are made up of experience in Afghan and Afghan. All of those are basically utilizing a large carry troops or engineers. Rolling out through the axe that is the remains of yesterday's Iranian attack. And the question from trees. Mark's just having fun now. So I think the only thing that really stopped this story